Myron? How did I golf yesterday? Almost at a hole-in-one. Par 3, draw, hits the green, hits the flag. 3 feet. 3 feet for birdie. Almost had my first hole-in-one yesterday. Speaking of yesterday I was on a live stream on Digital Gnosis, and they brought up Project 2025, and I was thinking, like, there's so many, these young, some not young, some people on the left, they believe the propaganda that their leaders tell them, and you guys got to stop that. You got to be a little more skeptical. And just to let you know, when Trump says things like, this is the most important election of American history or something like that, I don't believe him. When Trump says things like, if Kamala Harris becomes president, it'll be, our country won't survive it or something like that, I don't believe him. Neither, if you're leaning left, in my opinion, when if the Democratic Party says that if Trump gets elected, Project 2025 is going to be enacted, don't believe them. And so yesterday I was in a live stream with Digital Gnosis, Nathan, and some other people, and they were so worried about Project 2025. And I wanted to make a video showing their comments and doing Trump statements. And then this morning I saw this. This morning it came out by Warren Smith, who I've talked to on Peter Boghossian's channel a little bit. And he did such a great job, I thought I'd go through it, because some of the conversations I've had with people is that it's for sure, like, if Trump he has friends in the Heritage Foundation, he's going to bring them in. And then not only is that an assumption, but the assumption is, even if he does bring some of them in, that it will be what Project 2025 wants will be enacted. That's also assuming that there's Republicans control the White House, the Congress, and the Senate. I mean, there's just so many ducks that have to be in a row for everything to happen. But anyhow, let's listen to Warren Smith here.
I've seen Project 2025 being used as sort of like a stage prop.
This is Project 2025, the Republican blueprint for a second Trump term.
Are you ready? I know nothing about Project 25. I haven't seen the document. I don't intend to really see the document.
Okay. I hear Trump's voice. My guess is this is partly true and partly false. Has he seen the document? He's probably seen parts of it. That's very reasonable to say.
And it's a group of people that got together that wrote some kind of a dream document for them.
Who said, yes, this is the plans being laid out, and it may be true that Trump claims that he wants nothing to do with this, but there are people that he works with, or he has worked with in the past, that he's secretly developing this with. And there was recently leaked footage of him.
The videos that you have released inside Project 2025's secret training videos.
So I looked at that evidence. Trump's not anywhere in that footage, and I have not seen, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen anything that would actually act as evidence connecting Trump to Project 25.
It is a real document that you can read for yourself at kamalaharris.com/Project 2025.
Yeah. Or you can just search it in Google, and you don't even have to go to Kamala Harris's website.
J.D. Vance wrote a foreword for a book that this guy wrote.
Listen to this.
For yourself at kamalaharris.com/Project.
Because yesterday I was talking to some leftists. As a conservative, I like talking to people who disagree with me, have different leanings, different worldviews. And I asked, why do you guys think that Trump has anything to do with Project 2025? And one of the first things a guy named James said to me was, because J.D. Vance wrote the foreword. This is the full document of Project 2025 up. I typed in the word Vance, and it's not in there, except for the word advance and grievance. I'll try again. JD? No, JDA, FBI. JD Vance. Searching. None. No hits. Okay, let's go to the forward section. Control F, forward. There's not even, hang on. Is there even a forward section in the document? Well, they at least don't call it forward. Like a lot of books have a forward titled forward. I'm looking for it. Should be at the beginning, but it isn't. Okay.
2025.
J.D. Vance wrote a foreword for a book that this guy wrote. Yes, it's not Project 2025, and there are articles that are written clearly trying to paint the picture that J.D. Vance wrote the foreword for Project 2025, which is just factually inaccurate.
So it's so amazing to me because I sometimes get accused of believing the propaganda coming from the right. And it's people on the left are just gobbling this up. J.D. Vance wrote the foreword for Project 2025. Factually incorrect.
Anytime that I see something that's just factually incorrect and it's being trotted out and being used as a prop and as centerpiece for all of this, it's concerning. And then I have people in my own life that genuinely believe this is real.
One area.
Yeah. Finn, good question. What party does the Heritage Foundation align itself to? The Conservative Party. What party do those, in my opinion, crazy, wacko leftists who believe males should compete against females? The Democratic Party. So any argument you make like that by guilt by association can be used right back at you. And people on the left tend to, I don't know, it bothers them more, this idea of guilt by association. You can't even talk to a Nazi. Why not? Well, because then you're associated with them. So? Well, that makes you a Nazi. No.
Where Trump and Project 2025 agree. They both do want to get rid of the education department.
Trump wants to defund education, the Department for Education. That's the claim, but let's take a closer look at that.
Our schools must be totally refocused to prepare our children to succeed in the world of work and in life and the world of keeping our country strong so they can grow up to be happy, prosperous, and independent citizens.
What exactly?
See, on a lot of issues, I think I'm mainstream, but I'm way more conservative than Trump is because I'm okay with the abolishing of the federal Department of Education, not the state, the federal. I'm okay with that. Trump isn't. There's a lot of conservatives who would talk like me and say, yeah, why do we need a federal Department of Education? It actually only funds, something like 10% at most of all the federal money. And once the federal government has its fingers in education, it's quid pro quo. They can say, hey, either you teach this or you don't get funding, or stop teaching this or you don't get funding. It can use it on both sides of the aisle. And do you want that? If the government has no stake in it, then the state governments can give the middle finger to the federal government and say, hey, you're not involved in this party. You're not involved in this. Get out. Let us teach the kids we see fit.
This is just a traditional conservative idea around smaller government versus larger government, that the states have a better ability to do what is better for those within their states because people have a better ability to influence what occurs within their state than they do at the federal level.
Extraordinary teachers should be filmed and broadcast in every class, colleges too. I mean, there's so much information and ability to transmit it that we need to allow for innovation and not just be stuck in the old model. But the old model is because people don't want to allow anybody to get involved with the system.
American society pours more than $1 trillion a year into public education systems. But instead of being at the top of the list, we are literally right smack, guess what? At the bottom.
Objectively, that's a problem.
Yeah, which is evidence that just throwing money at a problem doesn't solve it. If you want to solve the education problem in this country, solve the parental problem in this nation. And a lot of schools are doing this. Some schools in very poor areas of the United States are combining like affordable housing and the schools close to each other. It's basically people who make the mistake of having kids that they can't afford or not ready for, having kids, and then no parental guidance in these kids' lives tends to lead to students who do not perform well in school, especially if the fathers are not home. That's the key problem. Not that there's not enough money for books at school, my opinion, but I think I can back it up with data too.
That needs to be fixed. Do you have any alternative solutions? What is the solution you think would be better? Because what we're doing clearly is not working. Warren, your cousin, well, yeah, but your cousin's been, or your friend so-and-so, we'll call her Sarah, or not, Sarah's been watching your videos, and she would really like to debate you on in vitro fertilization. I thought, why?
We want to make it easier for mothers and fathers to have babies, not harder. You know that. That includes, and you saw this, it was a big deal over the last few days, that includes supporting the availability of fertility treatments like IVF in every state in America.
Okay. Project 2025 does talk about in vitro fertilization. I looked it up a while back. Do you think Trump is just lying there? Like, why would he lie about that? Here it is on, what does it say? Department of Health and Human Services. This is directly from Project 2025. Finally, the FDA has long held that regulatory authority over such tests, while others have argued that they should be considered clinical services regulated by the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid. The FDA currently has regulatory authority over in vitro diagnostics. Oh, that's not it. Fertilization. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Fertilization. Hooked on phonics worked for me. What? It's not even in the IVF. What? What did they call it? I remember reading something about it. Not IVF. Vitro? But that's not it. Infertility? No instances. What the heck? I thought I read something about it a few months back. Don't tell me they don't even talk about it. This is bizarre. I could have sworn Project 2025 said something about in vitro fertilization. Mandate for leadership, yeah, 2025. What should I search? What would it be under? Reproduction? So, I know I'm very confident it's in here, but I'm searching the wrong words. What words should I search?
Claim that Trump wants to make in vitro fertilization illegal.
I strongly support the availability of IVF for couples who are trying to have a precious little beautiful baby. And today I'm calling on the Alabama
Yeah, I can put myself in the shoes of a leftist, be as critical, cynical. I just can't see him lying here.
legislature to act quickly to find an immediate solution to preserve the availability of IVF in Alabama, and I'm sure they're going to do that.
And then we see a direct response, him speaking with his own words, saying the exact opposite. People just dismiss that as, yes, he's saying that, but secretly there's Project 2025. And this is what he really wants to do, because the people within his orbit are doing this. So we're judging people not on what they actually say or do. And that is a conspiracy. And then we have...
Yeah, conspiracy. I agree with that sentiment, but the distrust for Trump is so high. It's almost like the brain becomes warped that nothing he says, they believe. Trump could say the sky is blue. No, it isn't. Like, this is where it gets to be insane.
People on stage, Obama himself, claiming rip Trump with his conspiracy theories. Is this not a conspiracy theory?
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
If I come out and say, I don't have any interest in making in vitro fertilization any more difficult, I would like to make it as easy as possible for families to have children.
I found it. Yeah, I'll let this play, but I think I found the in vitro part. You have to search under the word embryo.
Yes, well, Warren, yes, he says that. Warren says that, but this person who used to work with Warren co-authored this document, and in that document they said, it's just, is this really the world? Is this really the wisest course of action? This is the world that you want to live in? Or it doesn't matter what someone actually says or does. Like, don't judge them on what they say they're going to do. And then the opposite, we have a candidate who does not seem to be saying much of anything around these topics. Just these.
Yeah. So here it is. Because the male-female dyad is essential to. I guess I should show it. This document's so incredibly big. You probably still can't see it, but because the male-female dyad is essential to human nature, and because every child has the right to a mother and father, three-parent embryo creation and human cloning research should be banned. And research on human embryonic stem cell registry. So basically, research based on embryos should be gone. Aggressively a plan to pursue and fund ethical alternative methods of research in order to ensure that abortion, embryo destructive related research, cell lines, and other testing. Okay, that's all about research and testing. Actually, this is more about cloning. Here we go. Eliminate the week after pill as a contraceptive. See, I disagree with that. Ella is a progesterone blocker and can prevent a recently fertilized embryo from implanting. Bioethics reform, research using fetal tissue. Yeah, actually, I don't think Project 2025 even says anything directly about IVF. It's all indirect. About not using embryos for research, not doing like the three-parent thing and cloning, which I think is reasonable. You can still disagree with it, but it's not crazy.
Large statements built upon emotion that are the equivalent of saying, yes, I'm against poverty, or, young women should have the ability to succeed, and it's important to work
platitudes.
in life.
What Warren's talking about here is, it seems like what's coming from the left is more platitudes than anything. And the specific policies, well, the one that just came out, no tax on tips, she took from Trump. And then in her speech, I think she condoned the immigration bill, the bipartisan bill, which is for, there's a section in it that says that the wall should be continued to be built. And Kamala Harris said years ago, it's a total waste of money. Doesn't solve the problem, something like that. But yet she supports a bill that builds the wall, Trump's wall.
We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
Not going back to what? You're currently in power. You're not going back to the way things are currently. I mean, the last 3.5 years. This reminds me of when, who was speaking at the DNC, and basically, it was Michelle Obama talking about hope for the future, and now we finally have hope with Kamala. Hello? The Biden-Harris administration has been in power for 3.5 years. Michelle Obama, I don't think people realize this, was indirectly bashing. It's like, finally we have hope for the future, even though my team has been in power for the last 3.5 years.
And we are charting a new way forward. Forward.
So, could chart it right now. You're in power.
To me, watching these speeches, that it was just that again and again. It was that sprinkled in with just attacks on the opposite party and the opposite candidate, built around Project 2025.
Well, these are the terms and conditions of a second Trump presidency. You vote for him, you vote for all of this. Let's take a look.
Spectacle is just going to be a reality at these conventions on both sides. I thought the Kid Rock performance was I found it a little cringe. It's just me.
Throw a fist in the air, let me see where you at. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight.
There was equal cringe on the other side. Kenan Thompson coming out and wielding Project 2025 literally as a prop.
All right, we got Matt here with us tonight. Is Matt here? Hey, there he is. I understand that you work as an AV tech in Nevada, and you make a decent hourly wage. Is that right? Can we hear Matt? So who's gonna fix it? I guess we're gonna move on from Matt.
There are many people who want something to be true, and they seem to just be blindly making that narrative cognitively coherent to themselves and just overlooking everything else in the pursuit of that goal. That's a form of cognitive dissonance. It's powerful. You combine that with the hatred for this other candidate, and you package that within a story like Project 2025, and no amount of first-hand disavowals or first-hand statements coming right out and saying, I have no interest in Project 25, I don't even know what this is, this is, and suddenly that, it doesn't matter. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, and that's because I think, well, here's a possible explanation for this. It's because of feelings. It's because all my friends believe this way, so I have to believe this way too. Or a perception of real harm that's going to happen to me if Trump becomes president. Like, even if I put myself in a Democrat's shoes, and everything else is the same, okay? My lot in life, my family is still here, my whatever. Everything's the same, except now I'm a Democrat, okay? And then I'm imagining Trump becoming president. Guess what? My life's not going to change. There's nothing that President Trump can do to me as a Democrat that I can see that reasonably can hurt me. He could raise my taxes. That would hurt a little. But I'm not super rich. I'm not making millions of dollars a year. I think Trump is not going to raise taxes on the rich, right? He's a bad guy. He likes rich people. He's a rich person. So there's the problem is, if you have this real fear that if Trump's going to win, like, is he going to kill you? What laws will he enact that will affect you personally? Even if I imagine myself as a trans person, most of these laws are at the state level, not the federal. But there are some federal things like changing back Title IX, which Biden changed. Trump could say something like, no, we will, as a country, it will be legal to discriminate based on gender identity. Okay, so I'm a trans person then. I'm still not going to use the bathroom that society doesn't want me to use. I'm still not going to compete against females in sports. Well, I'm old now, but is it really going to affect me? Oh, am I going to be sad that I'm not going to get an F on my driver's license instead of an M? Not really. See, now, but I'm picturing myself as a stable trans person. A stable trans person is not going to be bothered by this. A stable trans person is not going to say, I require the love of my government. Right? But maybe by definition, a trans person is unstable. I'm talking about trans people on purpose here because I've been told I talk about it too much, which means I need to talk about it more. Okay, so you just watched that conversation that Warren had, that video. Yesterday I was in Digital Gnosis's live stream. Let's see if I can find it here. And almost everything that Warren brought up was talked about in that live stream. Let's see if I can show some of it. This conspiracy type thinking. Let's search 2025. Ooh.
Because that was Bates. It was Bates.
I
mean, but like, why would you even like? Never mind.
This is what I was speaking about. We need these gotchas.
Are you concerned about Project 2025?
Me?
Yeah. No. Okay, fair enough. Are you aware of what it is?
It's so long. I've read maybe 10% of it, and that's probably an exaggeration. Probably closer to 5%.
World where Kamala Harris wins the election, Project 2025 will happen anyway.
No.
Then I don't understand. Like, wouldn't you?
Okay, you got a hidden assumption in your question. Your assumption is that Trump endorses all the things in Project 2025, right?
No,
that wasn't even in there.
Okay,
I don't have that assumption at all. I don't think Trump.
Okay, so why did you mention Trump?
Because his election will enable Project 2025 to happen.
His election will enable Project 2025 to happen, even though Trump has said the opposite. So if you're leaning left, you have to say Trump lied, and he's saying this to get voted, but as soon as he's in, he's going to adopt many things in Project 2025, if not the majority. That's what you have to believe. That's what I just asked you.
No,
you use the word enable, but why do you think Trump's election will enable Project 2025
Vance wrote the forward.
Okay, did you hear that? James, this guy named James just said Vance wrote the forward. Factually untrue. This James guy is bought into the left-wing propaganda.
Because Trump will, because there's, along with Trump, right, there comes a whole bunch of policymakers, right, starting from the top of the administration, Heritage Foundation folks who wrote the 2025 documents, right? They come into power, right? They get to lay out policies and hiring decisions and so on. That's
what do you base that Trump will hire these Heritage Foundation people?
Because many of them are people from there. We have like
So yeah, these are assumptions. But like, what would be the left wing equivalent to this? Well, if I vote for Harris, Harris is going to bring in these far radical left wing progressives, these woke progressives, who will say that if you discriminate against a trans person, say a boy can't go into a girl's bathroom, a male can't go into a female's bathroom, that you could actually be punished for that legally. That's discrimination based on gender identity. That would be, I think, the equivalent of the type of fear that Deepak here is expressing.
because many of them are people from his ex-administration, right?
Okay.
Many of them are people who've like had. I mean, there's people who have like talked.
Okay, but they're forgetting that we have 3 branches of government. You're assuming that even if you want to enact something, like there's many things that people on the left want to enact and can't or don't accomplish because they don't own both the Senate and the House. And then even some things that they can get through, then the Supreme Court sometimes says, no, this is not constitutional. Doug, Vance wrote the foreword to the Project 2025 Leaders book. Correct, but not Project 2025. See, this is that whole guilt by association thing. But if you're going to if you want to tell the truth, then tell the truth. Say, no, J.D. Vance did not write the foreword to Project 2025. He wrote the foreword for a different book that's associated with a guy in Project 2025. That's the truth. Right? Right.
You have changed your mind in a direction that's got more and more radical. And
why do you think it's radical? My views on the trans issue, for example, is very mainstream. And I got the data to prove it. Your views on trans issues, Nathan, are radical, not mine.
Well, I obviously don't think that's right, but
what percentage of people poor Nathan. He views me as a conservative. This is the problem with especially young people on the left. They think that if you don't think like them, in general at least, you're wrong. You're factually wrong. That people can't have different values and come to different conclusions, and therefore that's why they vote differently. And that if you don't think like me, you're radical. But really, my views on most topics, I would say, not all, when it comes to policy stuff, mainstream. And I would say people like Nathan from Digital Gnosis and other progressives are the real radical extremists who say that males can compete with females, that there should be a 60, 70, 80, 90% tax rate on the wealthy. These are pretty radical views. I think the tax rates are pretty good where they're at now. I'm for more balanced budgets than not. There's a lot of people on the left who are MMT people who say deficits don't matter, or we can just print what we need. The MMT people are really crazy. In the United States, think that males should compete against females.
No, the most of them agree with me.
Look, in sports, you might be right. So if you're talking about sports,
okay, my views on the trans issue, I've said this so many times, I'll say it again. It's when it comes to sports, males against males, females against females. When it comes to drugs, gender affirming care, that sort of thing. No drugs for kids under 18 and no surgeries for kids under 18. I'm mainstream. This is not radical.
I wouldn't call that radical.
You can say I'm wrong, but don't say I'm radical. Robin Page says he clearly supports it if he wrote the foreword to the book of the guy who wrote Project 2025. Robin Page, what was in the book that he wrote the foreword for? Did you read it? What was in it? Thanks for the donation, Pablo Andres. What do you think of Alan Lechman's 13 Keys to the White House prediction. Mainstream news has platformed quite a bit. His main key is incumbency, right? It basically boils down to incumbency. So I forget what he said about I think he said that if Biden drops out, it's more likely Trump will win. And Biden, well, I don't think Biden dropped out. I think he got pushed out. But anyhow, so I'm not familiar what he says now. But I don't necessarily disagree that incumbency is a huge advantage. By the way, which lends support to Trump's theory that he was robbed of the election in 2020. He got more votes the second time than the first time, was the incumbent, and still lost. This is like a 4, 5, 6 sigma event. Hey, I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm just saying this is an argument, a very top level meta headline argument for why Trump might be right on that. It would be amazing. It would be fun. It would be so absolutely hilarious if, let's say, 20 years from now, sort of like the John F. Kennedy files are released and it turns out the CIA did shoot him. It'd be so funny if it turns out that there was very compelling evidence that the election was stolen in 2020. I'd laugh. Because everybody's so confident. I laugh whenever someone's highly confident about something and then it turns out to be wrong. Speaking of which, being highly confident of something and then it turns out to be wrong. I made a video on Rationality rules with this person named Imane Khelif, who is a boxer at the Olympics that got a lot of exposure. It's right-wing propaganda, right? But it's a real-world situation where it really looks like this person is male and won the gold medal in boxing in the women's division. By the way, I think we should get rid of women's and men's sports. I think we should get rid of women's and men's sports and replace it with male and female sports. I think the right should use the rhetoric of the progressive woke left and say, don't you people get it? Gender is a social construct. Biology, sex is biology. They're different. Don't you guys get it? Ah, we do get it. So let's remove women and men's sports, which are social construct words, and replace it with biology words like male and female. And say, no males in female sports. I don't care what you identify as. Who cares what Imane Khelif identifies as? Don't care about your identity. Go cry in your room. Don't care about your males. Males compete against males, females against females. And if you're intersex, you default to the male category. Keep it simple. It's a greater good argument for fairness. If that's unfair to how many people are intersex and of that percentage, how many of them are in sports at a competitive level, we're talking like, okay, maybe 3 people in the world are going to cry their eyes out. Net suffering, right? We got to keep. What about the feelings of the regular, the cis, the typical people? So anyhow, Rationality rules, I think, is pandering to his base on the left mostly, saying, how dare you say that this Imane Khelif person is male? How dare you? Where's your evidence? I mean, you have no good evidence to say that Imane Khelif is a male. Well, what is your evidence that Imane Khelif is female? I just reversed the burden of proof. In fact, for good justification, I think, but...
Of the accusations that were thrown at Imane and still are being thrown at her are founded. They're all speculation. They're not undisputed, they are all speculation. Facts matter, and I'm committed to bringing them to light. Thanks. With no credible information whatsoever, which has led to wild speculation.
We have no credible information that Imane Khelif is female. Well, but Doug, she was raised as a girl, and in a country, a third world country that hates trans people, and so I mean, I'm not talking about trans. I'm saying it could be possible that Imane Khelif was born intersex without a penis, but everything else is male, could have testicles inside. Right? Remember, girls and women, those are social constructs. How we raise people is a social construct. Let's get this straight, people. We're not talking about whether Khelif was raised as a female and has pictures of herself in a dress. Who cares about that? What we care about in sports is females compete against females. So the question is, Imane Khelif is female. What evidence do you have that Imane Khelif is female? Don't tell me just because it's on her birth certificate. Remember, we can use the rhetoric of the left right against them. These are just assigned by doctors in the hospital. You really think that they go through the genetic testing when someone's born? No, especially in a third world country like Algeria. These are just arbitrary assignments that people make, the doctors make. Penis, boy. Vagina, girl. But if you have an intersex person who was born without a penis, or so small it looks like a clitoris, I mean, where's your evidence that Khelif is female? I want to see it.
That's mere speculation. Basically, it's a mess. It's utterly vague, and so it's all in dispute. It could be that Imane has XY chromosomes, and an intersex condition such...
It's so funny, because Rationality Rules admits here that Imane Khelif could be intersex. He admits that. And I rewatched his video, I think 3 times. He never once made the claim that Imane Khelif is female. He made the claim that she is a woman, or he is a woman, or it is a woman, but not that Khelif is female. So that's very smart on his point, because then he doesn't have the burden of proof. But I will claim that Imane Khelif is intersex. What's my justification? Just look at her. Him. It. Oh, I can't say it. That's rude. Him, her. Now prove me wrong. What's my justification? Appearance. Well, you using appearance? Yeah, I admit it's a poor justification. But until you can give me evidence to overcome that poor justification, I'm still justified, right? Where's my defeater? Well, she was raised... That's a social construct. I'm talking about male and female. We got pictures of her in dresses. That's a social construct. I'm talking about male or female. It's on her birth certificate. That's a social construct that's just assigned at birth. I can use the exact rhetoric right against them.
Which is androgen sensitivity syndrome. The point is, without Imane's actual medical records and the IBA's super secret criteria, we're all just left in the dark taking shots. None of the accusations that were thrown at Imane and still are being thrown at her are founded. They're all speculation. They're not undisputed, they are all speculation.
Not quite, though, because we do have reports of someone testing, but, of course, people on the left who are supportive of the queer community, and intersex is part of the queer community, they have a conspiratorial type thinking that the testing that has been done to show that he or she is XY, it hasn't been produced to the public, so therefore we just discount it. But it's still evidence, right? You just don't think it's reliable evidence. You think it's faulty, or the test was faulty, or something, or the test never happened at all, and they're just lying.
When they spread such unfounded nonsense that causes real harm. I mean,
yeah, and the thing is, I can say the exact same thing back at people who say that Imane Khelif is female. Unfounded. Sure, she's a woman. She's a woman. But it's unfounded that she's female. Remember, we got to separate it. Social construct, biology. Keep them separate, people.
You're supposed to be all about science and evidence and all that jazz. So how about we actually, use some of that instead of making sweeping statements about complex biological stuff based on...
Quit making sweeping statements that Imane Khelif is female.
a few photos and your gut feeling.
Yeah. So what's my justification? Wadabak asks that she's intersex. I already said it. Imane Khelif looks male to me. And there's evidence that she has been tested. And there's evidence that it was the results were XY. So I think the best way to show and demonstrate that I'm wrong is to genetically test Imane Khelif. That's the simple way to do it. Oh, but that's so obtrusive. That's so, I mean, then it comes down to feelings, right? If you're against genetically testing Imane Khelif, if the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is against testing Imane Khelif, genetically testing, and other tests, for fear of feelings, then you're putting feelings above truth. Now, you could also say, well, her life might be in danger if she, the woman, who's a male or intersex, in my opinion. Yeah, that's it. You know what? I'd be willing to give amnesty to the UK. How is that? I'm sure Nathan from Digital Gnosis would support Imane Khelif living in the UK. Persecution. Let's all just shave our body hair off and ban clothes. I don't know about that. Most people are ugly, naked. Okay, I'll open up the show to calls. I understand it's difficult to call in and talk to me because some people think I'm too rhetorically gifted and can run circles around you. But as usual, I'll tie half my brain behind my back to make it fair. Yeah, I got it. I got it open. Sent a super chat earlier, Pablo. Yeah, I read it. The Alan Lickman. Anglo-Catholic, thank you for your super chat. Can you review a video on suburban Ponzi scheme? Maybe. Sounds a little boring.
PineCreek.
Yes.
I wanted to share one of my hot takes with you, and I wanted to bounce it off with you and see what you think.
Okay, bounce away.
Okay, so first of all, would you agree that sexual abuse against children is one of the worst things in the world, and that we would all hope to prevent that?
Yep.
Okay. Therefore, and who are the number one offenders of sexual abuse?
Catholic priests?
No, it is people who are abused as kids. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's what I said. Catholic priests.
Okay. Okay. Come on, work with me. Work with me.
That's that rhetorical technique I have.
Work with me.
Okay, I'm working with you.
Would you agree with that? The most likely people to offend in that respect.
Yeah, I think the studies show that. Yeah, if you've been abused,
okay,
you're more likely to abuse.
Okay, great. We agree. So
I think that's
so far
true.
we've agreed that we would do anything to stop the problem, and that the number one perpetrators of this are people who are victims as kids. So shouldn't we, if this happens to someone as a kid, shouldn't we therefore monitor them for the rest of their life to make sure they don't hurt anyone else?
Well, this is a tension between what is the pragmatics, the utilitarian view, and concepts of freedom, of privacy, and all that sort of thing. And you're saying that their freedom of privacy takes a back seat to protection of children, right?
Well, I think because we agreed in the beginning that we would do anything to stop the issue, we'd be hypocrites if we didn't do that.
Well, we didn't say, you didn't. This is the first time you used the word hypocrite, I believe. But so you're saying that we should put a tracker on them?
Well, I think they should have to check in, probably with some sort of officer monthly, maybe, and have monitoring devices. Probably we'd have to work out the details, but it would be shitty. But this would cut down the cycle, because it's a cycle, right? We have to break the cycle somehow.
Well, yeah, I understand. What percentage of people who've been abused actually become abusers?
I don't know.
Well,
I just know that
that's important to know, I think, in this analysis.
That's a good question.
What percentage of those abused become abusers? What's your guess?
I think it's probably around 40%.
Ooh, ChatGPT does not like that question.
I don't know. It's probably lower than 40.
It will not answer it. What's going on? Okay, let's ask Google. 1/3. Whoa, you're good guess.
Oh, wow.
Studies show.
See, that's a really bleak number, though. That's horrifying.
1/3 of those abused become abusers. Wow.
Yeah, that's terrifying. So shouldn't they be under more suspicion?
Who are they abusing, though? Their own kids?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Who are abusers mostly abusing? I'm doing some Googling here. 90% of people who commit violent physical assault are men. Yeah, we all knew that. This is why, we separate social constructs from male and female.
Right.
My guess is family members. So maybe a better solution, if you want to get very authoritarian, a solution would be to sterilize them.
Okay, I actually like that. That's actually a lot more cost effective too.
Yeah, so you would have to come up with a system of being very sure that they've been abused.
Yeah.
And then sterilize them before puberty and say this is...
Okay, well, I guess this would get rid of all incentives to actually report abuse, though.
Well, no.
Because you're saying, well, if I report this, then I'm going to get castrated, essentially.
No, like your sibling, your sibling would be castrated too, or sterilized. Somebody, a neighbor or whatever, someone who knows the truth. But are you willing to castrate or sterilize the 2/3 to protect kids from the 1/3? Like, these are moral dilemmas, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, now we're encroaching on their rights unnecessarily.
And if you start talking this way, then what percentage of African Americans commit crimes?
Right? Should we preemptively just lock them up?
Like, yeah, should we sterilize all black African American men before puberty?
Yeah. All right, Doug. Well, I think you've convinced me to drop this idea. I think it's a pretty shitty idea, actually. So,
well, it can lead to
me.
some really dire, slippery slopes, I think.
Right.
Okay, thanks for calling in.
All right.
Room's open. I'll pin the link again, or for the first time. Where is it? Yeah, if you don't care about people's freedoms, sterilization solves a lot of problems. Fun fact. If you want to get rid of poverty, sterilize anybody in poverty. You end cyclical poverty. At least you diminish it greatly. But is that moral? And what other values does that conflict with? But I think most people would agree it would work. I mean, not 100%, but is there anybody here who doubts that would work? If your goal is to reduce poverty, to sterilize people in poverty? Why don't we just implant chips in everyone just to be safe? Says Michael Smith. Matt, how I always forget this channel exists. Oh, is that a diss, JR? What's Project 2025 again? Oh, I'm glad you asked, and I'm sorry you came late. Sit in the corner while I answer this question. Project 2025 is a boogeyman that the left uses to emotionally and psychologically manipulate its voter base into thinking you cannot vote for Trump. Project 2025 is the new and improved January 6th. How do you know which 1/3 is? Yeah, you would have to have some type of legal investigation. Working in healthcare in a poverty population, I believe poverty is not about not having access to money, but learning at a young age how to be poor. Ah, very good, Mr. Science. I agree with that. A very simple thing you can tell young kids, and you don't even need great education for this. You could put it on a billboard. Hey, if you're poor, don't make the mistakes of your parents. Full stop. Don't repeat the mistakes of your parents. In fact, do the opposite. Whatever your parents did, do the opposite. Because as George Costanza said, if everything I do is wrong, then the opposite has to be right. I love that episode of Seinfeld. Would Trump's tariffs lead to increased inflation for average everyday Americans? The correct answer is depends. I hate it, having to say that, but it really does depend. So, in other words, if there's no substitute at a price, the pre-tariff price, then the answer is no. But if there isn't a likely substitute for an imported good, then the answer is yes. Like, in other words, if you put a tariff on a Chinese good, for example, and most Americans, most of the time, have to buy it, then of course that will cause inflation because the price will go up. But in theory, what Trump is thinking, that Americans can make that product at a competitive pre-tariff price. And therefore, if there's a choice at a store between buying a Chinese good and an American-made good, and you tax the imported good, now it makes the American good cheaper than the tariff good, and you buy it. But then some say, well, then that will cause the domestic prices to go up as well because the competition is now high priced. So it's assuming that there's still adequate competition of that substitute within the United States to begin with. But in cases where there isn't and only few people make a certain good, let's say you have one American company and one Chinese company, then what the American company will probably do is just increase their price a little lower than the tariff price. And so, yeah, in that case, it would cause inflation. Nathan from Digital Gnosis would be so proud of me because I gave a very nuanced answer there. But we need to talk about trans issues because I've been told I talk about it too much. So please, someone ask a question about trans. How would you feel about both Republican and Democrat parties ceasing to exist and replaced with something more like countries in Europe and where there's over 20 parties? I think 20 parties is a little too much. I think you could probably represent most people within 4 parties, and you wouldn't have to abolish the Republican Democrat Party. You just take the Republican Party, divide it into 2, and take the Democratic Party, divide it into 2. It kind of already is that way. They just don't label it. You always have the ultra-progressive wing of the Democratic Party and the ultra-conservative wing of the Republican Party, which includes, let's say, some libertarians. And the ultra-left-wing part of the Democrat Party includes some communists. Chris already answered that question. You would have to have an investigation. Thanks, Zachary. Tariffs lead to unemployment. If you have to buy an American-made widget for $100 instead of a Chinese one for 10, you don't have a. Well, Mr. Science, yeah, you're exactly right if that's the situation. You're 100% right if that's the situation. But as far as I know, Biden didn't remove any of the tariffs that Trump implemented. I wonder why. Let me fact check that. Because I think the Biden administration loved that tariff money coming in. He might have removed a few of them, but I think the majority of them he just kept in place. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So if you think tariffs are the main reason we have inflation today, yeah, then that's a good argument. But I don't think that's the main reason. I think most of us know that the main reason why inflation went sky high, it's now coming down, but prices are still going up on an average. Main reason is because stimulus from the COVID crisis and the Federal Reserve digitizing tons of money. That the supply of money exceeded the supply of goods. Doug, I guess you suggest that I rewind the stream and find out what Project 2025 is? Okay, I guess I can give you a more serious answer. It is basically a plan for the nation, policy-wise, produced by an organization called the Heritage Foundation, which is very conservative in nature. So if you know what that means, I hope I don't have to explain that. But it includes party loyalty from the top to the bottom, a lot of the social issues gone. I mean, conservative. Federal Reserve should maintain interest rates above 4% to keep inflation low. I agree. You know what's so stupid, in my opinion, is the Federal Reserve is planning to cut rates at a time when the stock market is at all-time high. Housing prices are still high. Really smells political to me. Room's open if someone wants to call in. I'd rather talk with a real life voice than to words on a scrolling window. JR, you see? Yeah, you're in the UK, right? Yeah, UK people don't know much about American politics, but probably more than we know of UK politics because, you know, you're a small island. You're a small island that's responsible for all the colonialism in the world and the formation of the United States to begin with as a superpower. But other than that, UK is irrelevant. Hey, Chris, you got to learn how to type English. What is trans issues do you have her? I would call in, but I'm way too drunk. You better be in Europe, Michael Smith, because in the US, it's too early to be drunk. Yeah, JR, the Brits are irrelevant nowadays. The problem with Great Britain, as I see it today, is that the men, their testosterone levels are far too low. Did you know that I could ensure a Trump victory by sneaking into Democrat men's homes and injecting them with testosterone, Trump would be guaranteed a victory. You think I'm joking, but I think that's true. If you increase the testosterone levels in men, they will vote Republican. They vote Republican in general already, but how many people realize that voting patterns can be determined by hormone levels? Yeah, I'm the great testosterone assassin. Are channels like Atheist Experience and The Line to be considered big atheism? How much revenue do you think Jimmy's channel generates? Oh, I don't have to guess. It's public knowledge. Well, as far as ad revenue goes, you go to Social Blade. And what is their YouTube channel official name? Q&A line. They make roughly 10K a month, and then they get donations. So you assume donations are equal to that. I'd guess 20,000 a month. But then my guess is they distribute that. I should ask Paul that question when I was on. Do you get like a stipend when you interview? I mean, host? Yeah, 20K a month's not bad. It might be more. It might be 40. Who knows? Based on donations. Who knows? They get a lot of people there, though. Like I would say in the United States, atheism is 2/3 Democrat, 1/3 conservative. It's probably higher than that, but on shows like The Line, you'll get 90% pretty far left progressives there. At least 70, 80%. And you guys have all heard my theory on that. My prediction, though, is that over the next decade, conservative atheism will be on the rise. Not so much that theists will become atheists, but that I think there'll be conversion therapy. There's going to be, over the next decade, my prediction is, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I think more and more people are going to leave the left as atheists and identify as a social construct as conservative, or at least right-leaning. Those people mute everyone's an echo chamber there. Well, I'm sure they say the same thing about my channel. Oh, they don't even care about my channel, which is okay. I truly think that people on the right need safe spaces. They say they don't, but they do. But it's far more prevalent on the left. It's because their testosterone levels are lower. Like, people can think the absolute worst of me, and it doesn't bother me, especially if you're a stranger on the internet. But people on the left, they haven't figured out life yet. They haven't figured out that the biggest step to playing the game of life is not to give a shh about what people think about you. As soon as you can accomplish that, your life becomes so much better. Now, I'm not advocating that you become a douchebag, but if you don't care so much what people think about you, I truly think your mental health gets better. This is the problem with, I talk about trans people too much, so I'm going to do more. This is the problem with trans identity. It's the demanding, let's say, of certain pronouns to be used. And if you don't use the right pronoun, you get kicked from a live stream or whatever. It's because they don't know who they are. They need to be validated. It's important what other people think about them. They're scared to be othered. I mean, if you're scared to be othered, then you really care deeply what people think about you. Now, I can understand, I guess, like when you're a child, that's important. But the part of being an adult is not crying every time someone calls you a name. Douglas, how are you going to go on live chat when I'm working? I have a lot of trans stuff to tell you. Hey, Dewey Head. Quit your job. Go on food stamps. Become a good winger. Like, I know you're a left winger already, but you might as well play the part altogether. Why work when I can pay for your food? All right? That's just science. So quit your job. Hop on here. Tell your boss, take this job and shove it. Your boss is probably Republican. No, you live in a blue state, so who knows? Forcing people to care about your personal life is one of their downfalls. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Smith. But this is part of the testosterone versus no testosterone discussion. A female is way more likely to care about the feelings and whatever you want to call it, emotional well-being, than a male. This is why we need mothers in the home, but this is also why we need fathers in the home to say, hey, child of mine, grow up. Life's not fair. Listen to your mother. No, you're not taking the car out tonight. You are not. See, that's why you need dads. Mothers can say that, and if it's a teenage son, the son goes, whatever you say, Mom, and then takes the car and leaves. Try doing that with a big dad. What if it's a small dad? I don't know. Hey,
Doug, what's going on?
It's good to see a new face. We've never talked, right?
We've never talked, but I've been listening to you for a very, very, very long time. So first time, long time. I know all your tricks.
Uh-oh.
I know.
What am I going to do now?
I don't know. So I saw you were live. So I never see you when you're live. So this is like the first time. So I figured I'd call in.
So, okay, I'm trying to predict. You've listened to me for a long time, but you know all my tricks. So I'm trying to figure out if you're pro PineCreek Doug or against PineCreek Doug, and you kind of hate watch me.
I'm pro PineCreek Doug, but I have all my caveats here. So
okay, let's talk about those.
So I'm pro because I was obviously turned on to you from the
You're gay
stuff.
Oh, okay, you're not gay. Okay.
No, unfortunately not.
Because I got a lot of gay followers.
If I was, right? You know? So, no, I got sucked into you.
We are a pro-gay channel here.
I started watching you a long time ago because of the religion stuff, right?
Okay.
And
yep.
then
and I conquered that, and I moved on.
You destroyed religion. Religion's dead. Cool. And then the politics stuff, I was intrigued because I really appreciated the dead insidedness being moved towards politics. And it's really nice. And it's really nice to see the reaction.
Spoken by a man with a high T count, I bet.
Yeah, hopefully. I've got 2 kids. I don't have a high pitched voice, so I don't know where I land.
You see that?
No, I know your numbers. See, I've seen this. I know.
seen
I know you love your high T. So
I'm a 3 Sigma T count guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
a freak of nature.
I haven't cared enough to ever really look.
Did I ever tell you that story? Did you hear the story? What happened?
All I know is that you did. I figured it might be something related to testing that you did for IVF. Perhaps.
Yeah. So I went in to get my testing done for my T count, and I had to go back to the doctor's office to get the results. And when I opened the door to the doctor's office, there was a bunch of nurses there at the time. It was like the Red Sea parted. All these women nurses, they just went like on the other side, and I walked through them, and they were just all staring at me. And then I found out why. It's like I was a 3 or 4 Sigma T count guy.
Oh, did they put your picture on the wall?
I think so. Yeah, I'm right next to Trump.
People might get impregnated by osmosis. You got to be careful about that. So, okay. So I got, started watching a lot of your politics stuff, and I don't want to say you lost me or anything, but I think one of the reflections that I had, and I did have a specific thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
It's like Christian dominionism, but I've always lived in a conservative place, right? Mm-hmm. So I've always lived in the South. I'm very, very familiar, like in the place where the first time you introduce yourself to somebody, they're asking like what church you go to, and it's just completely foreign to ever come across somebody that is left-leaning or has anything other than fully all.
Yeah, in your town, you treat liberals like species at the zoo. It's like, oh, interesting, their behaviors. Yeah.
Well, I'll go even further. So my first election to vote in was 2008. And I was door knocking for the Obama campaign and calling in phone banking and stuff. And my boss found out about it. And like 2 weeks later, I got fired because it's just very like toxic, very, very, I was young, labor rights, all that sort of stuff. I'm sure it probably was not legit, but it was very like, it crushed my family. It was like this huge deal for a really long time that it took them a long time to understand. They still don't understand to this day about,
Wait, your family doesn't understand that what?
Well, just that somebody could not be a conservative.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Right. So all of this is, I'm an adult. I live my, whatever, own my own home, like kids, life, whatever. I'm dead inside. No big deal at this point. But one of the things that I find really interesting is that a lot of the feedback that you seem to have, and I'll just say I'm not very motivated by like social issues of the day, like trans stuff, gay stuff. Like I don't care. It doesn't really. I think I vote more on more like practical bases. But one of the things that I think the guy's name was Andrew Wilson. And you were talking to him a while back, and I think some of kind of like when you were riffing and had some feedback, you were saying that those sorts of Christians, those like hyper fundamentalist Christians, will never really agree with each other. Mm-hmm. So they're never going to be able to really like dominate government. They're not going to be organized to the point where anything like significant would happen from their organization. Right. And I feel like, and I should probably have data, but I don't, but it's just my gut and my life experience, everywhere I've lived, whatever, all the people that I know and the people that are in like the broader social connectedness of my area, I feel like if they had power, they would very most certainly do some pretty like wild, undemocratic things very quickly.
Like what?
And I'm sorry?
Like what?
Like I could imagine things like, right now, like restriction for voting, making things very, very difficult, using the power of the government, seizing power of the government to just limit things unnecessarily in order to make it more difficult for people.
Okay, can I raise doubt in you on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for your consent. Would you say that making voting tougher is a good thing or a bad thing? You got spiders on the ceiling?
Short one-word answers. Bad thing.
Bad thing. Okay. Do you think that is it better to have a voter who cares or doesn't care about politics or who they're voting for?
Cares.
Yeah, like that's just common sense, right?
I don't think those two are connected, though.
Do you? Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm going to get at. I'm going to connect them and see if you agree with the connection. Do you think if someone takes the effort to put on pants, get in their car, drive 10 miles, wait an hour to vote, versus someone who it's very, very easy to vote, one shows more effort than the other, right?
Yes.
And if someone really, really cares, they will make that effort, right?
Yes.
Someone who doesn't care is less likely to make that effort.
Yes.
So by making voting tougher, you're weeding out the people who care versus don't care. Would you agree?
Yes, but I'm one word.
So that's the connection. By making voting tougher,
I hear you, but I think it leaves kind of other things on the table. So, like, for example, the city that I live in is the largest city in my state. It typically votes a particular way, and the state legislature overrode voting times that my city could be open for voting. It only applies to my city, and for all intents and purposes, it only affects to limit who can vote. Like, you got to be there at now a narrower band of time, when in the past, in every other election in the past, it had never been an issue.
How big is your town or city?
About the greater city, probably about 8 million, 7 million.
Yeah, but that's not like there's different voting booths in
my city. Sorry. My city itself, I think, is around like 2.5, 3 million.
Okay, and I agree that if it becomes to the point where some people who really care and want to vote can't vote, yeah, that's bad. But I also do think that if people can vote in that time, and it's just it's a little inconvenient that time, that's not a good enough reason for me.
I agree. I can understand that. I think there's other knock-on effects as well. But can I just so I better understand your position, can you, I guess, put me at ease on? And I saw Project 2025. I don't know. Like, I'm not crazy, all right? I'm not freaking out. I'm not a big Trump, or I'm not a Trump guy. Like, I'll vote Democrat. I have for a very long time, but I don't freak out about that sort of stuff. Just put me at ease, though, with Christians taking over that are hyper conservative, that want to just like jam their feelings.
Okay, yeah. I'll put you at ease. Christians have been running this nation politically for hundreds of years, right? And it seems like, and I'll use language that the left likes, and it seems like our policies tend to still progress, right? Like, at one time women couldn't vote, now they can vote. And so the current Speaker of the House believes the Earth is 6,000 years old.
So the machine will keep on being a machine, irrespective of that's the position.
Well, I'm setting your mind at ease that, number one, historically, there's always been Christians on both sides of the aisle. Number two, we have the three branches of government. In order for legislation to be made, it's not just as simple as, oh, I'm a radical right-wing Christian, I want this, and now I'm going to get it. No, that's not how it works. You got to, number one, have the far right-wing conservative have the president who's in power, who thinks like you, the Congress is in power that thinks like you, and the Senate's in power that thinks like you, and then hope that the Supreme Court doesn't overturn it because it's unconstitutional.
What would you say to that, like that were kind of like, obviously it's not like a switch being flipped, but things like the court being with a strong conservative majority, and things get taken up by the Supreme Court, like the Chevron case that led to, like, or will lead to, as experts are saying, kind of a gutting of leadership power from the executive branch. That, like, all of these, whenever there's legal
the
challenge,
Chevron case, from what I know of it, doesn't scare me. I think in general these things will ebb and flow. There's for the next couple decades, the Supreme Court of the United States will lean right, and then probably 30, 40, 50 years from now it'll lean left, and then it's going to lean right again. It's just going to go back and forth. That's the way our system works.
Okay.
So, yeah, and with the Chevron case, like, I know it has to do with experts coming in and kind of testifying on behalf, and it's almost implied that the judge has to go with what these experts say. But the problem is that these experts often are very politically motivated themselves. And a good example is the case where a male was allowed into a female prison because the expert said that this male was not a threat to the female inmates, and on the basis of this expert panel, which happened to be a pro-queer community type organization. So this is where, why people think this way. But you are a very interesting person, because you said some key words to me.
Sure.
That confuse me.
No, you're a smart guy.
No, I'm serious. I got many thoughts in my head. I'm thinking PineCreek theorem with you. I'm thinking many things with you, because you said you're dead inside.
I'm dead inside. And also, here's a fun fact about me. I do a lot of SE on TikTok. I went live on TikTok, and I like to talk to conservatives and Christians and stuff. It's kind of fun.
Okay, so if you're dead inside, that's
Yeah.
one thing you said. Another thing you said is that you're a practical guy.
Yeah.
And that social issues don't really...
No. I'm from the South. I mean, these social issues have been put to bed for a really long time.
Okay. And so my question is then, what is it about the Democratic Party that attracts you? What values or...
I'd say the financial continuity. So I think there's a lot more practical decisions that are done in the Fed. I know Fed's very topical right now. I share your fears, however, of the increase in deficit interest payments. So, like, I feel you there. However, I think that monetary policy on the Democratic side is usually a lot more consistent, meaning that businesses, the world, other countries, businesses in the U.S. can predict better what's going to happen in the United States and can make better decisions. I think that the Democrats make a lot. They can run a federal government pretty well, and all of the expansive tendrils that the federal.
No offense, but you're giving me very general answers. Like, what specifically can...
Sure, here's one. I like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I think it's really important. I think one of the issues of the day in our current system is that organizations can, like companies, can exploit consumers very, very easily. And there's really no consumer protection in a ton of different areas. I think just a very small example, a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that's led by Democrats is going to bring more structure and more avenues for consumers to find relief. I think there's probably going to be more antitrust regulations going to be much more likely on.
Okay, so you seem like what you value about the left more than the right is more regulation.
I'd say more structure.
Okay, so you do so.
And a little bit of regulation. I mean,
consumer protections, regulations against big bad business, and
no, but I mean, when you're there's regulation, like you can't, like, companies that take your social security information, your personal information, and get
Right.
hacked, and then they're like, "Sucks for you," right?
Yeah.
Like you have no protection really, right? And then there's companies that dump oil on top of ducks, right? Like, so there's regulation can go a lot of different directions.
Like, I lean pretty far right, but I think most people in the Republican Party are against the stuff you're saying too, like the most egregious stuff, for sure.
True, I agree, and I think these are some like pretty. I hate the term like common sense when it comes to politics. I think a lot of these are pretty common sense. However, a lot of the people on the right are motivated by social issues like Title IX stuff and trans and people in bathrooms and religious and all of that those sorts of protections. And the representatives that represent those sorts of ideas that make their way into government do not care about consumer financial regulation in any way. They never speak to it. It's just not an animating factor for them. So just practically, if I want a little bit more structure, maybe a little bit more regulation, a little bit more like,
yeah. See, from what I'm hearing from you is like the difference between you and me is like you feel a little, and I don't take offense to this, but you feel a little more sorry for the little guy than I do.
Perhaps, but this is gonna sound arrogant, but I'm a big guy, frankly. So I'm not too like I want my investments to continue paying, right? Like I want to continue working like my comfortable job. I want to not get screwed by people that have way more power than me, and I want to just live my life and not bother anybody.
Okay.
That's my motivation.
Well, I think everybody wants that, but I'm still trying to figure out the differences between me and you. Like,
I think whenever you hear social issues, when these various different social issues that come up, that really animates you and something you feel very strongly about.
Yeah, like I have a list about 4 things.
Get inside to that stuff.
Like I have a list about 4 main things. The reason why I'm voting for Trump, and it's, but I would say just one of them is social issues.
Well, you've built a really good moat too. I mean, I listen to you a lot. You work for yourself. You're financially, everything's fine. I mean, you've made great decisions there, right? So I think those sorts of other issues aren't really
right. They don't apply to me. Yeah. And you mentioned the Federal Reserve. Do you think the Democrats are better with the fiscal policies? Like,
I think I think one of our issues, and you've talked about this before, but it's pretty self-evident, is energy production.
Yeah,
Democrats are bad. Aside from the kind of new sort of focus that they've had on nuclear, Republicans will drill immediately. Inflation would be.
Is climate change a big climate change alarmism? Like we actually have to do things very quickly. Got to take action now. Is that a big issue for you?
Yes and no. I actually work in an industry that is. I don't want to like dox myself or anything, but where that's important. However, my personal feelings are we've lost the war at that point. Like,
you've given up.
I mean, I want to wherever I can make a difference. I would like to vote for people in policy that would help us, but like the Democrats and the Republicans, the Democrats have. Sure, they talk about like banning certain.
Okay, so it's not climate. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what's different between you and I, except for maybe you feel a little more sorry for the little guy.
What are your reasons that you're voting for Trump?
Immigration, foreign policy, critical theory, which is more the social stuff, the trans stuff.
Can we talk about foreign policy?
Yeah, like I don't think the U.S. should be involved in the Ukraine-Russia war at all. Where do you stand?
I think it's important to. I think this is part of like the unfortunate nature of being a world superpower. That in one sense you can kind of like influence the direction of the world by not necessarily even being involved in a war directly.
Actually, can we just speed this along and just
Sure.
So yay or
yeah,
nay?
I think it's a cost of doing business. You want to stay in power.
So that's the difference between you and I.
Global world hegemony. Like, write a few checks, let Ukraine keep on keeping Russia busy. It'll fizzle out eventually. Russia will spend whatever.
See, in my opinion, I'd rather spend that money on our own border rather than defending someone else's.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't in a handful of different ways. I feel like it's just
like if it was a choice. Let's say,
right? Like, it's not a zero sum. It's like we can.
I know, but let's say the Federal Reserve couldn't print money, and you were forced to make, and you only have $100 billion to budget for border defense, and the Federal Reserve can't deficit spend, but we have allotted $100 billion. Would you rather spend it on the Ukraine border or our southern border? It's a no-brainer question, isn't it?
I live on the southern border.
So do I.
Our southern border. I'll give you that.
Okay. This is the thinking that I have, because I think I'm okay with deficit spending in certain situation, but I'm more of a balanced budget type guy. How about you?
I agree. I think it needs to be structured, but where specifically are you okay with deficit spending?
In cases of like severe depression or war,
and the
our war.
So in investment though, in we'll just say the infrastructure. Right, like national highway system was spent.
Yeah, that could be a case, but even then, I think you can raise the revenue first and then save it and then use it to do those infrastructure spending things. So maybe we're a little different there. We're definitely different when it comes to foreign policy. We're different. Like I think the Republicans are horrible in the past 20 years at fiscal stuff. But,
I agree.
But I think the Democrats are worse.
I mean, you just got to give them more time for their policies to pay off. That's what
a little more time. Okay.
That's just another election cycle. You'll see.
Like, are you aware that the Biden administration will have a bigger budget deficit over 4 years than Trump?
No, I'm not.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Very few people on the Democrat side know that.
Okay. What's that based on? The response to
the monthly Treasury reports. You just add it up. Go eat month by month. Go by year by year.
The Democrats will tell you that's not their fault.
You're right.
They're just handed what was given to them. Right. Just look at the graph a little bit on a longer scale.
But it's very scary to me that when we have such large deficits and we're not even in a recession.
True, but wouldn't a recession and big spending get us out of it?
Would a recession get us out of a recession, or what are you asking?
Would a recession would mean that there's a lot of people newly in the job market, I would assume, right? And then those new people can be put into a new direction, right? That could maybe be funneled towards more.
Why do you say a bunch of new people in the market would be happen in a recession? Usually unemployment goes up when a recession hits.
I know, but then those people would be looking for work, right? And
you mean after the recession's over?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have a big supply of workers, yeah, and hopefully there's enough jobs for those workers. Here's another thing that most people on the left don't know, that the number of employed U.S. citizens has not gone up since the Biden administration.
Interesting.
All the new employed people was pretty close. There might be, but the vast majority of new employed people in this country in the last 3.5 years are immigrants, non-citizens. Now, some people say, I don't care. That's fine. Other people say, well, wait a minute. Maybe these new jobs should go to our 18-year-old kids.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
What should a I haven't fully formed my decision, my thoughts on this in current state, but should a full-time job be enough to support oneself?
To me,
should someone working
yeah,
40 hours?
no offense, but to me that is a horrible question, a terrible question, because
Make it better.
Well, first explain why I think it's a horrible question, because it's almost like, shouldn't I have more hair? That's the type of question it is to me. Now, I think.
Well, it's a question to get to understand your perspective more.
Yeah, I think that that the system we have is pretty good in terms of the balance between socialism in quotes and capitalism in quotes, and so I think I'm more of a free market guy. So that question of shouldn't a job pay enough for you to live? If I was forced to give an answer, I would say no. You're not guaranteed to be fed in this country. Now, someone would say, "But should you?" Well, yes, but that doesn't mean. Listen to me carefully. Hang on. It doesn't mean that it's the government's job to feed you or house you. This is the difference between left and right. Some would say there's charities that can do it. Your family can do it, that sort of thing. So this whole idea of shouldn't there be a living wage? I say no, it's what the market will pay. And if you can't afford it, number one, don't have kids. Number two, go to your family first. If you don't have a mom and dad that will help you, you have a bad mom and dad. Number three, you go to your neighborhood, your communities, your local food shelter, that sort of thing. Number four, you go to your state. And last of all, you go to the federal government for help. And now, go ahead.
What about the, I think, pretty common criticism would be a business that can't afford to pay their employees a normal wage, this is the FDR quote, but they shouldn't deserve to exist, right? They're not running their business well enough to pay their employees appropriately.
Yeah, go ahead. Try to get them to not exist.
Do you? Because wouldn't that private business be relying on the welfare of the family and the community, and then at last the federal government?
Yep. It applies to employers as employees. The market forces work both ways.
So if a business went bankrupt for not running itself well, and
I'm all for that.
But should they be able to kind of watch those debts disappear thanks to the government and get another?
I'm against crony capitalism.
Okay, then we're on the same page.
Yeah,
that's my point. Is if the worker doesn't get protection, then the business shouldn't.
I think I'm an anti-subsidy guy mostly. I'm sure there's exceptions, like maybe even research, because I have a science background and I kind of have a soft heart for research. Maybe there's some subsidies there, grants and that sort of thing. But I'm okay with the small farmer going belly up because they were stupid and planted the wrong crop. I'm okay with some businesses and industries going belly up because they're stupid and made bad choices. Make them feel the pain of making wrong decisions. And in 2008, in my opinion, the banks should not have been bailed out. Let them suffer and suffer and suffer and learn not to make the same mistakes of the past. Don't bail them out. And so I think I'm pretty consistent on this.
No, you're consistent there. I agree with you. I think that's kind of when Democrats cry about how unfair life is for the average person. I think it's because there's this contrast with, we capitalize the profits and then socialize the losses from like a business perspective. And I think that's like the main criticism. So,
but when I asked you earlier, what is one of the main values that you have that would make you vote Democrat? I think one of the first things you said is about regulations to help the little guy. You didn't say it that way, but that's basically.
It's structure. Like I think when we when I go to bed at night, when there's the Democratic machine has all of its tendrils and all of its different places, I don't think we're going to wake up to be in a new war.
Ah, so it's fear.
Yeah. I want my way of life to continue on, right? I've built.
Okay, I found it. This is
my
the
life and family.
Yeah, this is the core difference between you, because you said you're dead inside. I say I'm dead inside. You say you're a practical guy. I say I'm a practical guy. We're both fathers, but you have a little more fear than I do, and I think that's why you vote Democrat.
Yeah, probably because of the context that I live in, the people that I have grown up with, the world in which I live. Like, these people are they scary folk. Like, they got some scary ideas.
So let me put a hypothetical to you. You wake up tomorrow morning and you find out that some crazy Republican guy fired 80% of the federal workforce. 80%.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll give my answer first. Doesn't bother me a bit. Probably won't affect me. I'll be just fine. How about you?
Yeah, I'll be just fine.
What? See, I was expecting a different answer.
No,
you're a closet Republican.
No, I am. No.
It's okay to come out. It's okay to.
These are my political perspectives for the world that we live in. I mean, my ideal perspective is like space Trek, Star Trek communism.
Do you vote Democrat because your wife told you to?
I'm actually 12 years married, recently divorced. So no, unfortunately not.
Was your wife very progressive? Was she more progressive left-leaning than you?
I was the hyper leftist that brought her. We met in the church, as all lovers do, and then over time, I slowly pulled her away. And
devil, you!
I know. And then and then from there, we kind of just maintained who we were naturally, which is just pretty boring people.
Huh. You're an interesting guy. Because I everything, like the stats, like if you were to check certain boxes, everything says that you would vote right.
Well, it's because like this is the thing, and this is my harshest critique of you. I love you, but this is my harshest critique.
You don't love me. You like me.
You're right. I don't know you. You're a stranger. But no, I think that there's just you've said it before. I'm probably going to quote you wrong, but
that's okay.
I have I've always kind of had more like left-leaning feels. I've had early on feel sorry forism. Like I've always kind of had this idea of worker control and workers owning the means of production and all that sort of stuff. So it's always kind of like,
I got chills when you said that.
I know.
You triggered me.
I know. And so over time, that's never really gone away as I've kind of like progressed in my career and gotten older and whatever. I didn't switch to this strong conservative, but I
So you have a bias towards the worker versus the employer, and so that bias, I think, leads you to vote Democrat.
No, I like to know who gets to. We're gonna get who gets to decide where the surplus goes of who makes things. That's all I'm interested in.
Oh, you mean like profits?
Yeah, like surplus. I mean,
on businesses,
Marxism, and all that sort of stuff. Whoever makes a thing,
yeah.
Okay, there's now that thing, and we sell it.
Yeah,
and we get profit from it.
Yeah.
Who determines where that profit goes?
The owner of the capital.
That's what I'm interested in.
I just answered it for you. The owner of the capital that generated that revenue.
Because why? Because they took out the risk to start the business and all that, right?
Yep.
The employee took a risk to go and work at that company.
Yeah, but not as big as a risk.
Well, we're speaking hypothetical, right? But they
okay. I'm going to give you some hard truth now.
Help me, fix me.
When a business owner, many business owners are built differently than the average worker.
They have that bankruptcy protection in mind, so.
Hang on.
Who cares? Uncle Sam will bail me out.
So there are some people. I'm going to try to be as reasonable as I can. I could say some shocking things, but I'll try to keep it down low. There are some people who are more risk loving than others. some of these risk-loving people take chances and it pays off, and some of them take chances and they can die and they go bankrupt or whatever. But it's those who take these risks which actually, in not all the cases, but drive the U.S. economy. These are the innovators. These are the thinkers who, I got to try this research. These are the small business owners who's, I think this idea will fly. I'm going to try it. And there are other people who they get mental anguish just thinking about that. There are some people who prefer a steady paycheck, and when they're done work, they go home and they don't have to think about work anymore, and they're happy. Those people are not the prime drivers of the U.S. economy. Those are the worker bees. The prime drivers of the U.S. economy are the people who are willing to take risks, and they get rewarded for those risks and they get punished for those risks. You can go both ways. And so when someone invests, I work with business owners all the time, small business owners, well, small meaning under 50 million, but bigger than $1 million. I won't work with anybody who probably makes less than $1 million in revenue. And they hire thousands, hundreds or thousands of employees, and they invest a ton of money in those employees and equipment. And sometimes they lose, right? And other times they make huge profits. And they have to keep those profits and be wise with it, because on the other bit, oftentimes they own multiple businesses. You have to let them keep those profits, the majority of it, for the times when they take the risk and they lose. Right? That just makes common sense. It's like having a balanced portfolio in investing. And so the worker bee is not taking any of those risks. You said they're taking a risk of just being employed.
Well, no. They're taking a risk to their health. If they're a physical laborer, they're taking a lift. Maybe they somewhere. They're trusting that this business has a good business plan, and they're not going to go out of business tomorrow. And they left their old job, and they're putting it. They're still
but
it's a level of risk, but they're still taking.
But they haven't made a monetary risk. We're talking about the financial part of this. Yeah, you're right. There's certain jobs,
and they chose to work for this business.
Yes, that was their choice, their own free will choice. So, I can grant you that they're taking a risk, but
my point is, all I'm trying to say is there is a risk that the worker takes, just like the business owner.
No, it's not just like the business owner.
They're both taking a risk.
Yes, okay, I'll give you that, but they're very, very different. How much money does a worker have to provide in order to start working at a place?
$0.
$0. How much does an employer have to put on the line in order to employ that person? A lot.
Depends on the health insurance. I hear you. My point is that risk can be quantified. I got to plug in my computer. That risk can be quantified, and it would be interesting to see a world where that quantified risk translates into some sort of like democratic decision making, similar to like a parliament or something.
This is where we're different again.
I've heard you before. I know you don't like it, but wouldn't it be interesting?
It would be horrible. Employees don't have access to the information employers have. And it would be horrible to, number one, give them access to that information, because sometimes it's confidential.
I agree with you a little bit.
And number two, those employees, business is not a democracy. It's a hierarchy. It's authoritarian for a good reason, because some of the employees are very ignorant of what's going on in the business. They're good at doing what they're told, and they don't even want to think for themselves. They prefer a life of just being told what to do, so they don't have to think and worry and have anxiety. And so, yeah, it's completely different.
Have you ever looked into organizations that are run like I'm describing?
Like a democracy?
Well, I mean, it's like
those are called left-wing granola crunching businesses that tend to be nonprofit.
There are some that are profitable. Blanket it starts with an M. It's really popular. But like one Friday every month, there's like 50% of the board is made up of people elected by the workers, and the other 50% is made up by the capital owners. And they every Friday or one Friday a month, they go through. They don't work. They just go through a slate of things to vote for various different departments and direction and all that sort of stuff.
Someone makes minimum wage. Is there ever a case where that person's overpaid, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
the correct
Yeah.
answer. So when getting back to your original question is, should
That's
someone
not
make a living wage?
That's the fault of the business owner.
That's the fault of the business owner?
Yeah, if there is somebody that has to structure a business in a way that they need the labor.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And
if they're not fired, I agree with you. They should be fired. Yeah. And if the business owner doesn't fire them, then they're not aware of the cost.
Then the business owner that's just seeking free handouts.
What?
If the business owner needs to structure a business in a way that it requires social support of that employee to work at their business from their community.
Oh yeah. I'm not talking about that, and I'm against that. So
in that case, yeah. But I agree. Yeah, there are some things that I think are on the periphery of society that are like jobs that are really no longer needed or will not be needed here very soon. Those are the jobs that are those minimum wage jobs that.
But if you agree with me that some people who get paid minimum wage are overpaid, then you agree with me that they don't deserve a living wage.
Well, they don't deserve things based on the labor that they produce.
Right.
And this is
so now the deserve part goes
that they deserve things because
they're human.
Sick, or maybe they need to live and not die in the streets, and I don't want to stumble over them when I'm going to.
It's for social reasons that you would say they would deserve help, but it's not because they're worth their work.
No, but so I think though that there are things that need to be done in society that don't necessarily generate a profit, right? That don't necessarily translate to an income that it will sustain somebody to live in a
right. We could live in a communist society. I understand that, but it seems like all of history shows that a mix between capitalism and socialism works better than communism. Right? Isn't that fair to say?
I haven't see. We haven't seen communism before in the dream of.
In my head, I predicted you would answer that before you did.
I know you would. I know. Like I know. That's why I gave the little worker ownership.
Notice that was the same answer you gave when I asked about when I told you that Biden's deficits over 4 years is going to exceed Trump's over 4 years. And you said something about the policy hasn't worked out yet. Just give it more time. This is your stance with the communism. History just hasn't had it, done right. Just give it time.
Well, I think we're gonna go if we go down this route, fine. But I think that any Marxist would tell you that when you look at the things that have been called communism, it's state capitalism, so they're not kind of one and the same. It is the dream of a Marxist is everybody sitting and voting on what to do each month, kind of like what I described.
What's your first name? You're so interesting because you're totally confusing me now, because I said earlier that you were a closet Republican, but now I'm thinking you're a closet communist.
No, I'm an out. I would. This is going to sound crazy. I'm crazy, but on the political spectrum, you'd say conservative communist.
You're a conservative communist. Okay, so do you have Russian roots?
No. These are just my.
Russians are conservative communists, kind of.
Some would say fascist at this point.
Okay, I want to get to some of the root principles then. Do you think when it comes to work and productivity, let's keep money out of it, just getting things done, that some people are better than others at it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that the people who are better at doing certain tasks should be rewarded for it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Do you think people who are not better at certain things should not be rewarded, in fact, maybe even punished for it?
Yes. These do not go against. This is not. This doesn't change.
Okay. I'm going big.
All I say is workers have a risk that they put into a business.
I understand, but I'm going
say on
foundational principles. Foundational principles. If someone works, I'm going to try to keep money out of it. If someone works better than someone else, you said that they should be rewarded for it. Do you think they ought to be allowed to keep that reward? Is that reward theirs, or is it society's reward?
In the communist or the Marxist world, this would be called personal property. So
personal property. Okay, so now we have, let's say, 1 million people who are better than other people at accomplishing certain tasks, and they've all been rewarded, and now we have a bunch of rewards given to them. You're still okay with 1 million people keeping those rewards?
I would just like for them to democratically decide if that's how they want to organize themselves. If they are okay with that, and that they want to develop a society in which...
No, I'm asking you, pretend you're in charge. Do you think 1 million people...
I can't be in my dream communist society. I can't be in charge. It's stateless.
Okay, what's your opinion then?
Yes.
Okay, so they should be able to keep their word. Is there a reward in your mind that's too big in your world? Should there be a ceiling on the reward?
For labor?
Yeah, for a task. You pick up a box from A and you put it to B. And I say, good job, here's your reward. Should there be a cap on how great that reward should be?
Sure, yeah.
Who decides what that cap is? The society?
The people that work at the company.
Okay. And if there is...
I like your you've said this about CEOs in the past. Well, CEOs take on huge risks. They're the face of an organization. Sure, pay them like whatever it is you want to pay them. If in my hypothetical here, if a democratically run company decided that that's how they wanted to structure their company and give out those sorts of rewards, sure. If they think that's going to make them more strategic in the longevity of their organization, the profitability of their organization, then sure.
Okay, foundational principles. Can someone in your world here, you said there are people better than other people at certain things, and they can be rewarded. Can they use that reward and trade it for equipment?
Yes.
Can they use that equipment to make things?
Yeah, they could start a whole new company.
Okay, good. Can they hire people who didn't make the reward to work for them?
They could, yes, but this is back to the at some point there needs to be a decision on who's taking the risk here, and everybody's taking a little bit of risk, and so the decision-making power.
Okay, we ready to talk about this? I'm just going yes or no answers.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay. And now they use their reward to buy stuff and hire people, and they get more rewards. Are they allowed to keep those rewards?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, based on the structure that I was just saying, but yeah.
And let's say these rewards get so big that it's, I don't know, makes up 50% of the economy. Are they still allowed to keep those rewards?
They're allowed to. Yes, they're allowed to do whatever their organization is deciding to do. Like if they're deciding,
they own the organization. That's the reward.
They get to decide. Well, not that they own the organization, but that they get to decide what to do with the surplus that their organization.
Right. The owners of this business owner of this business.
Who are all of the people that work there.
Well, hang on. You said each person can keep their own reward.
Well, you told me one short, sweet, one-word answer, and I'm trying to caveat this whole time with whoever works there. They've taken on a risk of some kind. That risk should be quantified in the voting decision or the voting weight of what happens at that organization. So if half the company who's, I don't know, taking on 20% of the risk, and another half of the company who's taken on 20% of the risk, and another has taken on 40% of the risk, and another's taken on 20.
So
like they're all.
You notice what happens here when I do baby steps and walk you through basically the foundations of capitalism. You agreed with it all, but once it got to a certain size, then you kind of pulled back.
No, I agree. Like these are all organizations that have to work with each other.
Why are you talking about organizations? I never even brought organizations up.
People organizing themselves to produce a product of some kind. They have to. If I need a machine and you're a machine factory and I'm a whatever maker and I need your machine, I've got to like work with you, right? So like I still buy things.
You use your rewards to pay other people. You use your rewards to pay other people, which becomes a reward for them. And then you use those people who you've paid with your reward, and you generate more rewards. This is capitalism.
It's a democratic decision within a.
There was no voting in this process. There was no. At
the organizations. All I'm saying, like, imagine every company we have now that currently exists that employs people, that has a board of some kind. Half a portion of that board is made up of all of the people that take risk to produce at that company. Like that's all I'm saying. That they still have to interact with other companies. We still have to make decisions. Like that's the only thing I'm saying here. Like
that's all within a capitalist society.
Government has nothing to do with who makes more and who can keep anything. Like it's just
why do you think you lean communist?
Because of I think this risk aspect.
Really? Because when people ask me why do I lean capitalist, I'd say because of the way I was raised. I was raised on a farm.
I was not raised on a farm. I was from farmers, but I wasn't raised on a farm. I was raised maybe by just normal.
So basically, you believe you lean communist because of risk.
Everybody takes risks to go and do whatever work that they're going.
Someone could be a capitalist and give you the same answer. I could ask someone, "Why are you a capitalist?" Because of risk. I love risk. I love taking risks and being rewarded for it. So I'll ask you, why do you think you lean communist?
I think that the risk that a worker takes should be quantified, and I think a worker should be able to have control of what they produce, and they should be able to decide in some way what happens.
Okay. Do you think the risk a worker takes is being quantified now?
No. Oh well, I mean, in some cases, yeah, but like in the situation I'm talking about, no. Like I could work for a company for 20 years, putting all my efforts into making the company better, rising into leadership, making very tough strategic
Do you
decisions.
think a deep sea welder makes more money than a cashier at Safeway?
Yes.
Why?
Because of
the risk.
Yeah.
It is being quantified through their salary.
I hear, but the salary.
I just heard the bell go off. Like that was the right answer, PineCreek.
You were at work. I should be working. See, this is why I'm a capital, or I'm really maybe a capitalist at heart, is because I should be working.
So why isn't the risk being quantified already through the salary? It is.
Ask that question again. Sorry, I was distracted.
The risk that employees take is already being accounted for in their salary.
I don't think it's fully being accounted. I mean, yeah, salary is one thing, and
if they don't like that risk reward, so if they're not being compensated for that risk, then they have the free will to leave and quit, right?
No, I mean they have rent to pay or bills to pay. I mean they need a job. They they have to do it, and the options
That's
that are
their problem, not their employers.
I agree, and they should, but I'm saying like the salary of somebody doesn't necessarily.
So if they don't like the risk reward ratio, you're not paying me enough, then they should think and say, okay, if I quit my job, do I have a backup plan? If the answer is no, then they should shut up and keep working, right?
I agree.
There you go. That's capitalism. Yeah, I'll give you the last word.
I appreciate the conversation, PineCreek. I think I appreciate I appreciate your tone. I've listened to you for a really long time, and I would say you have helped me become more dead inside. And I appreciate that. It's been very helpful.
It's very Buddhist, right?
Yeah. It's nice to. I've been working on my son. My oldest son is 9 years old right now, and he's dealing with 9-year-old problems. Just the problems of life.
Can't get his pajamas on, or what does a 9-year-old have for problems?
No, he can get his backpack ready. He can do his homework on time. He can do all that. No, just boys' emotions, high highs, low lows, that sort of thing. And we've just been talking a lot about like self-control.
Hey, say this to your 9-year-old son. Tell him, if you work really hard in school, you'll get a reward as an A grade. And ask him, would you be willing to give part of your grade to a friend of yours so it goes from an A to an F? See what he says.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Teach capitalism to your kids.
There's no fear. You'll be bailed out, if it goes off the rails. All good.
Well, maybe there'll be a nice friend he has if he gets in trouble to help him out instead of the federal government. Anyhow, thanks for coming on. I said I would give you the last word, but I kind of did.
That's fine. Thank you. It was nice to talk to you. Have a good one.
Bye. Woo! Woo! Lord have mercy. That conversation went all over the place. Well, not over, but it just. I thought one thing, and then and he threw me for a loop, and then I went another. Whoa! And he threw me for a loop. That was good. I liked it. I like being thrown for a loop. Joseph, thanks for waiting. I know it was a long time.
Hello?
Hi, I can hear you. Thanks for waiting. I know it was like, 45 minutes or something?
That's okay. I've got my computer today.
Oh.
It's a bad... I can't.
Remind me who you are.
Joseph.
I know you're Joseph, but which Joseph?
The gay one.
Oh! Of course. There's only one gay Joseph, and that's
Everyone
you.
knows that. Yes. The token gay one.
You actually look gay. I mean, if I was to look at you on the street, I'd say that guy's gay.
Yeah.
Can I show your face?
Why not? Yeah, of course.
I thought you were working.
I just got off, actually.
Oh, okay. Be careful with your language here.
Wait, be careful with my language on YouTube?
Getting off. I mean, got to paraphrase. I mean, there's kids might be watching, and they...
Oh, okay. How do I make it so that I don't see myself like
for those of you
mirroring?
Oh, I know you're always going to see that because
Okay.
the crowd can see you because you have such a lovely face. But for the crowd listening at home, this is the guy who says feelings are the only thing that matters, right? Yes.
I stand by it.
Yeah, and I understand the philosophy behind it. I even understand the at a root level, I don't necessarily disagree with you. That might be shocking for some people to hear. But what you're really saying is that, and you can tell me if I'm steel manning you correctly, that it's these impulses within us humans that actually does the driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we use a collection of facts to support those impulses.
Right. Exactly. So.
Yeah. So I had to learn a little bit more because I wanted to talk about the trans stuff the last
Oh,
time.
excellent. Because you know what? That's my specialty.
I know you love trans people.
Oh, they're my favorite. Did you know that I currently work by myself, But I'm
Yes.
thinking of starting a business, and my business plan is about 100 people, and I'm planning to hire all trans women.
I love that.
You know why?
No.
Because they have the intelligence of a woman, but the strength of a man.
Very good.
I can't go wrong.
It's going to be genius. I might as well invest in this now.
Yeah. In fact, the previous caller, who's a communist, I mean, you got to take a risk on that.
I watched your. I'm seeing you get upset about what's her name? Khelif.
Imane Khelif.
Yes, Imane Khelif.
I'm not
Can
upset.
you-
I'm not upset, Joseph.
Okay. All right, calm down.
I love gay guys.
I am wondering. So I saw the Steven clip where you kept like, I kind of think I understood it, which was that Steven kept saying that he like you can't assume anything about them, and then kept saying she, her, right? Like
Yeah. That was pretty good, right? I got him.
It was kind of, I guess. Like I understand like it from an autistic perspective, why it would make sense.
Autistic
but-
or artistic?
Autistic.
You call me autistic? I'm not. I've been tested.
Are you sure? Did you take the test? Like
Yeah.
the test?
I'm not a psychopath, even though some people think I am, and I'm not autistic. I'm actually perfect.
Perfect. I love that. I actually think I am a little autistic. I got a 96 on it, and apparently that means indicators.
I did take a narcissism test with
Okay.
a bunch of friends.
Mhm.
And guess what? I won.
Love that. So the last time we spoke, actually, we were talking about how I felt like, I think. Sorry, let me continue one thought and go on to a next one. I thought it was a lot of semantic rambling. I just think both sides are talking past each other when they're talking about the trans stuff. Even when you're talking about the sex and the gender things, I just don't think anybody knows what the hell they're talking about.
I do. I'm an expert. Ask me anything you want. I'll inform you.
So I guess I guess we could go with the basic question, and you know what that question is, right?
What is a woman?
Yes.
Yeah. See. I would say that a woman is someone who is born with XX chromosomes, has the equipment to potentially give birth, even though they might not ever. That meaning having a uterus, fallopian tubes, and most importantly, generate large gametes, which is called eggs, as opposed to small gametes, which is sperm. Yeah, and then we can talk about intersex and that sort of thing. And we use terms like woman and girl as social constructs to represent, often but not always, these characteristics that I just described with the gametes. But more appropriately, the correct term for what I just said was what is a woman should be female. So I described what a female is. But, and you're correct, it's about semantics. In my view, that when it comes to public policy and how we create a society and how we run a society, that we should use woman to mean female. And when it comes to, like, do you like dresses? Do you like long hair? Do you like lipstick? Then we say that's more, do you like big breasts? That's more womanly type. That's more the gender construct type stuff.
Okay. So would you say then, when it comes to defining what a female is, would you say that all three of the things that you mentioned are necessary conditions?
I actually think I missed a couple, but necessary meaning if you're missing one, you're not a female?
Correct.
No.
So what's the necessary condition?
I would say if you have all three of those, you are female. But if this is, like I said, you're getting into intersex. I think with the intersex issue, where you might be missing one or two, or your development is different than the typical, what we tend to say is we look at the development pathways of that individual, and it's not even 100%, but most of the time it is clear that the development pathway leans, let's say you hit 2 of the 3, for example, it leans to more one sex than the other. But I will also say this, the intersex issue is totally a different issue to the trans issue.
I think I agree, but I am of the opinion that I don't need sex to be binary. I think that
Well, nobody needs it to be. I mean, we just exist who we are, right?
Well, that's the question, actually. Does it? I would say that a lot of the problem.
What we need is food and air.
I would say a lot of the problems with these definitional things that are happening is that people, especially conservatives, insist that we need to categorize all human beings into 2 categories. And I don't think it needs to. I don't think you need to do that.
Well, when it comes to public policy, what I said earlier, I think it's very utilitarian. There's a reason why most human beings in prison are male. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest reasons is some chemical called testosterone. There's a reason why kindergarten teachers, for example, tend to make better teachers. Females tend to make better teachers for kindergarten kids because of the nurturing empathy aspects. We have evolved with these differences for a reason, and it helps in our survival. And once you start using the social construct terms of man and woman and flipping them, so a man is female, a woman is male, then you potentially can run into some huge problems, like a man going into a woman's prison, a male going into a female prison.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good thing.
I guess I would have to understand whether or not a trans person who is female but identifies as a man, if their chemistry works the way you would assume a cis person's chemistry would work, right? You made a large assumption about the general population of how males usually work and how females usually work. And I'm wondering, does that translate into a trans person? For instance, if it's true that what our side is trying to say, that these people who identify as men or identify as women exhibit behaviors more associated with the sex that they identify with.
Yeah, that's a good question. My answer to that is, when it comes to public policy, we ought not make exceptions for the greater good. So, for example, the cheater problem. If you have public policy saying, all you have to do is identify, self-ID, you just say you're a woman, and we accept it. That's a huge problem when it comes to public policy because of the cheater problem. And so for the greater good of society, you can have a very feminine man or a very masculine woman who say they identify with the opposite sex, and you say, okay, fine. But when it comes to things like women's safe spaces, like restrooms, change rooms, prisons, sports, no. And if you're sad, so be it. You can go in your room and cry. Because as a society, we cannot have special laws for you. We can't just for your identity and feelings. No, we got to run a society here, and here's the law.
So I guess my question next is, do you care about these trans people committing suicide?
Yes, I do care, but fun fact, very few of them do.
Well, I mean, like at least 40%.
That is false, Joseph. Whoever told you that was lied to you. I'm being dead serious.
I've been told that 70% of trans people suffer from some sort of suicidal ideation, and 40% have attempted.
That is false.
Is it?
Yep.
Can you give me the article that you know off the top of your head that might contradict that?
Well, number one, there is no data even out there on actual suicides. It's always, not always, it's most of the time suicide ideation. People, this is why people want me to shut up about talking about trans issues, because of these conceptions in their head that, oh, trans people commit suicide at high rates. Number one, we don't know that. And number two, like if I was to ask any trans activist, how many trans people committed suicide in 2023? They couldn't tell you. How about 2022? They can't tell you. How about 2021? They can't tell you. They don't know.
I mean, I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't tell you that question even if you asked it to me of any other class of person.
Actually, no, that's false. We do. Well, of course, we know.
No, you just said if I asked you, they wouldn't tell me, and I'm telling you, ask me. I won't be able to tell you either, especially not off the spot.
Yeah, right. You're right. But we do have stats on, say, middle-aged white men. Mm-hmm. They're very good at committing suicide. They're the biggest suicide demographic. But so this whole idea of, I think where you were going with this question is that maybe we ought to change public policy to make exceptions for trans people because they will kill themselves if we don't. Right? Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say to that, that's a form of terrorism. That's a form of emotional manipulation. Do what I ask or I'll kill myself. That's a very bad way to run a country. And so I think you're better off if you really cared about a trans person's life, and it's a choice between these public policies decisions. You're better off putting them in a padded room and keep them alive. They can't kill themselves in a padded room.
I would rather cure their the thing that's causing them suicidal ideation.
Yes, and I agree with you, but then the question becomes: people have honest and reasonable disagreements on how to do that. Some people say, well, we can start cutting off body parts. Other people say, no, we don't have to do that. We can just change hormonal levels. Other people say, no, we don't have to do that. We can just talk and support them and love them and hug them. So reasonable people can have differences in how to do that. But I actually think, and this is going to be a very depressing answer, and it's going to be very depressing for trans activists and trans people to hear this, but I think some people are just going to be depressed for all their life.
Okay. And you think that, do you believe that
unless they're really, I mean, you can make people comatose, basically, pump them up with enough drugs that they're kind of like living in oblivion, and you can keep them alive that way, but
just having been around trans people a lot, I lived in Manhattan for a while, and I'm queer, so obviously I'm with a lot of trans people. I will say that it feels good to see my trans friends go from very miserable people to very happy people, especially when they're in groups that
how did that happen?
They got out of their conservative-minded households and came to the city, and it's
live the party life
whole thing. Not really. It's more like they found people that didn't give a shit.
Okay, but that was option 3 of my list of things of how to help people who have dysphoria.
So I have a real quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If a nerd is being bullied at school, do you think it's a form of terrorism for them to go to the principal and tell that person not to stop? Even though if they say, like, I go home and I'm going to cry about this, or it makes me sad, or I might kill myself, do you think it's a form of terrorism? No. So that's interesting. I would say that's an inconsistent perspective based on
one
what
was
you just said.
Do what I say or I'm going to kill myself. Different than I got punched in the face. I'm going to go tell the principal I got punched in the face. To me, those are two different things.
Well, I mean, a trans person isn't saying do what I say or I'm going to kill myself. They say, if I'm not being accepted in this community,
you're right. Actually,
therefore I'm going to kill myself.
You're right. Actually, trans people don't do that. But to be fair, trans activists either say that, like, have you ever heard the phrase, would you rather have a dead son or an alive daughter? This is emotional manipulation to an extreme. When if a therapist or a trans activist says stuff like this, they're basically, I agree with you, they won't come out and say those exact words, but they're basically doing this type of extreme emotional manipulation of do what we say or someone's going to die.
Yeah, well, trans activists are lunatics. I'm not here to be a trans
I agree.
Most of them have no idea what they're talking about either. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't understand the self-ID stuff. I think it's garbage. It's meaningless gibberish, and I don't understand the
Well, hang on, you got to be careful. You said you had trans friends, right?
I do have trans friends.
Okay, so picture one of your trans friends in your head right now, and ask them this question: how do you know you're trans?
I've asked that question before.
And what did they say?
They said it's just a feeling.
Then ask them, could your feeling be wrong? What would they say? I mean,
they said
the attribution of their feeling.
I see why you went. I see why you readjusted that.
Yeah. I'm not stupid.
The attribute of the attribute of your feeling.
So they attribute it to maybe something like, I'm a woman trapped in a man's body, or vice versa. Or they might say, I attribute it to something wrong with the way I was developed, like something biological, usually is what they would say. Or I find myself, if they say something like, I find myself relating more to the opposite sex, that's a bad answer. You know why?
Why?
Because there are many straight, non-trans people who relate to the opposite sex better than their own, who do not say they're trans.
Right.
So how do you tell the difference between someone who gives that answer who is trans versus one who isn't?
I guess if they say so.
Yeah, that's self-ID. And which you just said that you don't buy into the self-ID.
No, as far as identity is concerned, if someone comes up to me and says I'm trans, I'm just going to believe them, right? If someone comes up to me and says I'm a doctor, I'm just going to believe them. You just told me that you own a business. What business do I have?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not. But when it comes to actually seeing how they perform in the world, like, I'm not. I guess you could boil it down to playing the long game. If they play the long game for long enough, I'm very much convinced.
Okay, but this is so good. I'm glad you're here because you're one of the few people we can talk honestly about this, not ruffle feathers. It seems like even our political biases are not coming into play and we're having a good, honest conversation. But when one of your friends says that I am trans, what do you think they mean when they say that?
What do I think they mean when they say that? I think they're saying that I grew up and I don't feel like this is the body I was supposed to be in.
Okay. And that's the similar answer I've gotten when I've asked actual trans people that question. So half of them say I was born in the wrong body, half of them don't. But they're making a claim about their feelings, but they're also attributing it to that they were actually maybe born in the wrong body, right? They're making that assumption or implication at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question to you is, do you believe them? Not about the feeling. I'm sure they're feeling it. But do you think someone can actually be born in the wrong body?
I do, actually.
Interesting.
Because I started to read up a little bit more about the biology of the human brain, and a few gender and sex biologists and academics who are starting to understand that sex might be tied to the brain in ways that we don't quite understand, which shouldn't be surprising if we live in a world where there are literally species of animal that can change from one sex to another.
You know that long-haired hippie neurologist guy? What's his name? I forget his name, but there's a famous long-haired, he looks like a hippie from the 70s. He's a neurologist. And yeah, he mentions other animals, but as far as I know, there are the current research. There's studies done on certain sizes of certain parts of the brain which correlate to males and females, but they haven't done studies on whether you could, let's say, identify a trans person out of 1,000 people. So So in other words, imagine you had a room of 100 people. Some of them are gay, some of them are trans, some are straight, some are butch girls, some are tomboys, some are very feminine gay guys. You think we can hook up a machine and look at the sizes of the brain and say, and a scientist say with, let's say, 95% confidence, yeah, that's, yeah, number 34, you're the gay guy. Number 47, you're the trans. You think we can do that? I say no. I would love to see that test being done if they can.
Well, I think that they've started to try that stuff. And if you ask me, that would be the best way that this could happen. Because I am a scientific mind, and I don't like I said, I don't like the self-ID thing. I do believe that these words should mean something, like man and woman.
I actually think that if we could run a test like that, if we could scientifically demonstrate that someone's trans using a machine, I think that would be wonderful. You know why? Because that would affect my stance on public policy. I could now get away from the greater good argument and say, you have a trans ID card. You've been put through the MRI machine. We have verified you as certified trans. And so now you're allowed to go into this restroom because you're probably not going to use your penis to penetrate a woman. So, but and Joseph, tell him, I want you to ask your trans friends this. If there was such a thing as a certified trans ID card done by a machine that's 95% accurate, would they do it? Would they go through the test and get this card? Because there could be a chance they go through the test and it comes out, sorry, you're not trans. You just thought you were. Would they be willing to take that risk?
I'd be interested to ask them that question.
Yeah, please do, and then come back to me and see what they say. How many trans friends do you have?
I have about 4 in Manhattan. I had one that was non-binary for a while, but they eventually they transitioned to being a woman.
Yeah, and so Joseph, I don't know if you've heard me say this, but my son is in musical theater.
Yay!
Yeah, and so you would love my son.
So he's definitely trans.
No, he's straight. I have evidence, but I won't tell him. And about, I forget.
See what you just did there, actually?
What?
That's exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about why I believe my trans friends. Because the way you can tell that your son is straight is the way that I can tell that my friends are trans.
No, but there's a slight difference, and here's why. I have a sister, and I grew up on a farm. My sister did everything with me. She's a tomboy. And I mean, her behavior, you would think, is so male, so masculine. But yet she does not identify as a man. She doesn't say she's trans. This is the difference. Is like there are cis people who act just like the trans people who even cross-dress, right? But they don't call themselves trans. And so what's the difference? It's just this something inside their head. That's the only difference.
But couldn't your son be playing you?
Yes, but I actually think the gay straight thing is more scientific than the trans non-trans thing, and here's why. Because I think, well, we're both a little older now, but there was a certain age for sure you and I couldn't control our penis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just does what it wants to do, and it also that if you were to show me pictures of naked men, I'm not going to get a rise. But if you show me pictures of Sophia Loren or Raquel Welch in her prime, I will, right?
Yeah.
And the reverse for you, I bet. Who's your guy? Tom Selleck? You look like a Tom Selleck guy.
I like football types, actually.
Football types, okay. And so if you could actually run tests like that over and over again. Of course, there's going to be times where it's going to be a false positive, but you can, with confidence, say this person's attracted to same sex. This person isn't. You can't do that with trans.
Not yet.
Not yet. You're right. That's a good point.
But like I said, I don't think it's just such a unique phenomenon in this universe that some people would be born with this idea that they're born in the wrong body. And it's not like it's just this one-off thing, right? There's like an entire population of people who feel like this. So
I actually think it's pretty new,
something
though.
must be happening. That's
I think the concept of being born in the wrong body is fairly new. Not the concept of relating to the opposite sex. Like I agree with the trans activists when they say you can go back thousands of years of different cultures having different, genders, but I think it's just very masculine women and very feminine men who have different likes or dislikes and preferences. I think the way we're raised from very young impacts. Like if you have a mother who hates men and you're a boy, that impacts you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to be the thing my mother hates. So you'll either end up being a gay man, maybe. Well, I think gay is a little different, but I think you're more likely to grow up thinking, I'm actually a girl, not a boy, because my mother hates boys.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
But there are, there's a lot of men who grow up in families like that who are perfectly fine.
Yeah, we're complex.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the trans issue are, if it acts like a duck, it looks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck. Even if it's not a duck, I think I'm going to call it a duck.
Okay, fair enough. And I tend to, like, if someone wants me to refer them by a certain pronoun, certain gender, I will.
Yeah.
But in my head, like, if someone looks like a guy to me, like, if, for example, if you told me right now you're a woman, and please call me she, I probably would. But in my mind, there's no way I really believe you are a woman.
Well, I actually agree with you there, because I do, in fact, think there's a performance necessary. There's attributes, performances, phenotypes that are necessary to being a woman. Because I'm still struggling with this, but I haven't decided how I prefer to define it. But I think I believe in a cluster of characteristics that if you adhere to a large percent of those characteristics, you are like the woman or the man.
Yeah. Do you know who Rationality Rules is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's his basically. I think that's his definition. I think he prefers everybody to be non-binary. That's the world he would love to see. But I think, he's a cluster of attributes that presents to society as a certain gender that makes you that gender. Which would exclude people like Leah Thomas, who's 6'2" or whatever, looks like a man, quacks like a man, just like you said.
Well, it could, but it could get more complex than that. Certain attributes could have a higher percentage of what it takes to like fill up the jug of what it means to be a woman. Like if having a working
fill up the jugs.
If having a working vagina is 30% and having long hair is 1%, then you have 31% of two characteristics. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, because I believe she can have a baby, what is her name?
Imane Khelif?
Yes, I believe that she can have a baby. So if it is true that she has XY chromosomes, now you're not talking about either you have to say that men can get pregnant, which conservatives hate saying, or you have to say that there's nuances to sex, exactly like liberals have been trying to tell conservatives for the last 10 fucking years.
Yeah, see, but I don't buy that. Like, I don't buy the bimodal distribution. It's very misleading. Like, here you got males, and here you got females, and it's like two. But no, it's basically two straight lines with less than 1% of the population being intersex, and so you got like little dot points next to it. Yeah, no, we are binary, 99% binary. And if you say, well, that it's not 100%, Doug, so therefore it's not binary. I mean, there's many things in life that we say is bimodal or binary, and it's not. Life always has exceptions.
Right.
And we still use the word binary.
Okay, that's a good point. I don't know how much I agree with the nature of bimodalism. I definitely don't agree with the nature of spectrum. I don't like those words, but I will say that as my last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is
I have to pee. So.
Do you?
Yeah.
You had to pee the last time we
Well,
talked.
it's always around 2.5 hours. Oh yeah, I'm at 2:46.
Okay. As far as the sex stuff is concerned, I know that you like to well, according to the 3 necessary attributes that you provided, I'm kind of wondering how many sexes you believe in.
2.
But right, but if someone's missing one of these, like in the case of the intersex individual, what sex are they?
It's what I said earlier. It's what scientists use is the developmental pathways and which are more dominant in the 2 sexes. So even with intersex, you were still talking about X and Y chromosomes, right? It's still 2. So it's just a combination now of those 2, like XXY or XX, whatever it is. So it's still binary, and it's still you would choose. There's certain genes that are turned off.
You're forcing it to be binary.
I'm not forcing it. Biology is evolution.
No, well, the word itself, like us defining it, is we do that, right? We're using a word to define a reality. And
don't give me this philosophy of language stuff.
But an XX person with those chromosomes is different than an XXY chromosome. So why don't we give them 2 labels?
Well, we kind of do when we put the word intersex or DSD in front of it. This is
right.
But it's a mutation. It's an exception.
Yeah, but like
it's not a new sex. It's a mutation of an existing sex.
Well, couldn't XY be a mutation?
You calling men mutations? Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe we're mutants.
Well, because don't all babies start as female and then
then the SRY gene gets either triggered or not. Yeah, I understand that, but
right,
I'm
so
talking about
only one sex.
But I'm talking about that in society, human Homo sapiens walking around today, the vast majority of them are either XX or XY, and there's a tiny exceptions, which is a mutation from the typical. It's not like a new third category that evolution has generated as its own new sex. No, it's a mutation of existing 2 sexes.
I would say
or one sex.
Mutation is doing a lot of work there, but
it's true.
I understand.
Intersex people are mutants.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
I
the truth.
Love mutants. Yeah, but I am saying that in a world where there's just red and yellow, when you see orange, you don't call it a mutation of yellow. So I guess at some point, if the mutations got worse or more of them happened, we would start to consider a third sex, right?
I don't view sex like color. That we have different shades. Remember what I said about the distribution? It's 2 straight lines up with some dots around it, which represent the intersex.
Right, but you have to explain what those dots are. You can't just let them leave.
Mutation of existing 2 sexes.
I don't think you can do, but there's still different things.
Try to stop me, Joseph. You can't.
But that just means that you're not actually defining man as a person with XX chromosomes. Because if you're going to call them one or another because they exist in this like weird dotted space, like you still haven't answered my question. What sex are they? Because they don't.
It depends.
They do not qualify
Joseph,
as the definition that you.
The answer to your question is Some male, some female. I can't give you a blanket answer. All intersex people are male. No. All intersex people are female. No. It depends. You'd actually have to look at the development pathways of each individual.
Right, which means that there is no such thing as an intersex individual. There's two sexes, and there's no intersex people.
Well,
because if you're just going to categorize them eventually according to a set of criteria that puts them into a man or a woman, then there are no intersex.
Joseph, you're just using words and labels to describe things, and that's what I'm doing. I'm saying that if it's an XXY, that's a label. We use a label, intersex. Actually, scientists don't use that word. They use DSD or different words, big words. That's how we label them. But we don't say they're a third sex.
I know we don't, but I'm saying why not? Why shouldn't we? And I'm also saying why make
because of utility probably is the answer.
Yeah, true. But I'm saying why not just get rid of the word intersex? Like especially if we just created a sex binary by gamete production, right? That would eliminate a lot of intersex cases where they would just.
I think that's the main criteria they do use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why would you define sex as anything other than your gamete production?
I think because of these exceptions of intersex. But yeah, you could actually say you could just go full stop. A male is any Homo sapien that produces small gametes. And then you can say, well, what if someone can't produce small gametes, Doug, because their testicles don't work properly? Does that mean that? And then you got these stupid people who always give these exceptions to try to poke holes. But
but it's the point being made, which is I think
remember, I got to pee.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I hope the whole point is just I think that people get a little too carried away with the language stuff. I like the what is a woman question, in my opinion, is nothing more than an insensitive trashing of trans.
I think we should change it to what is a gay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I am ready for answering that question. And then you can come over and you can experience what a gay is.
Yeah. If I ever have a grandson and he goes, Grandpa, what's a gay? Can I show them your picture?
Sure.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah. You should get it. I mean, I look gay, so.
Can I ask what you do for a living? And is any answer other than fashion wrong?
I work at a music school as an invoicing and finance person, and I also flip houses.
Oh wow, good for you! I like a gay guy who's a capitalist. Flip those houses. Excellent.
Doing it.
Thanks for coming on, Joseph.
Thanks, Doug. I'll see you in a bit.
Okay, ask your 4 trans people that question.
I will. I'm going to ask that question.
Okay, see ya.
I will.
That was so much fun. No offense, but I'd rather talk to the gay guy than the communist. But I enjoyed both conversations. I mean, seriously, both conversations were amazing. I loved them. They both keep me on my toe. They kept me on my toes. What am I looking for here? My outro music. And then I'll focus on the live stream chat for 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And then I'll go pee. I'll waddle to the bathroom because my bladder's so full. Joseph is great, yes. And most of you don't know this, but Joseph has 11 brothers. And the main reason he turned out gay is because when they were young, his brothers sold Joseph into slavery. This all happened back in Egypt days. I apologize for all the intersex people watching and listening for calling you a mutant, but please know I meant that with love. I'm the type of guy who likes to be different. In either thought or deed. So when I call you a freak of nature, a mutant, that's a compliment. I thought you were going to say they abused them. No. Joseph seems too well-rounded and stable of who he is. Joseph knows who he is. He knows where he comes from. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some real hard data. As a trans expert, as myself, it's always good to get new data. Joseph is now my research intern, working on my behalf. But Joseph, I'm not paying you. If you're listening, I'm not paying you. But I still want you to do the work. If the communist guy's still listening, I'm going to use Joseph as my free slave labor so I can get my reward. Poof. Well, that was great. I love life.